Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the CPC Speaks podcast. Today we have a special guest. It's Rashidah Cartwright, who also works at CPC. And our topic is African Americans and mental health. And just a little background, at CPC, we have a campaign called it's the Equity Campaign. We do it all year round. We're focused on trying to make sure that everyone from every kind of different background and different socioeconomic status has access to resources that they need. And if people don't have access to those resources and information, we want to make sure that we do what we can as a team at CPC to help people get those resources. So this week, we're going to focus on African Americans and mental health. And there's a lot of stigma. And Rashidah and I had a conversation prior to this. And everything she had to say was so interesting. So I'm really excited to have her on. So if you want to do a little introduction, go right ahead, Rashidah.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken. I'm so excited to be on here. My name is, again, Rashidah Cartwright. I'm actually the program supervisor for our Aberdeen Partial Care Program. I'm working with individuals with persistent and severe mental illness. Also a mom of 5 wonderful kids. I also am a certified psychiatric screener. So I've been with CPC for a little over 4 years, loving CPC. And I'm just so thankful to be able to bring this discussion to the forefront. I think it's very important. And again, we're topping it off. It's Black History Month. So, let's educate others and just let's get this going. Let's get the conversation going, Ken.
Yeah, let's do it. And what's the odds of that? 2 people with 5 kids at the same time speaking. So we both share that in common as well. And one thing I just, to tell the audience about, I appreciate about you, Rashidah, is your versatility. You work in partial care, which is primary, a lot of mental health, strong on mental health. And then you also have covered a lot of the addiction groups as well. So you really have a well-rounded viewpoint of the whole gamut of disorders and from addiction, mental health, and the whole thing. So I've always appreciated that about you. So just get us started. So what are some of the issues that people, the general public should know about when it comes to African Americans and mental health?
Well, I think it just kind of goes back to the concept of, mental health in the Black community and how there's that stigma, right? So if we trace it back, we can go as far back as slavery, right? And at that time, it was thought that, slaves were not sophisticated enough to have depression or anxiety. And so that kind of went through the generations, and also, having to deal with the adversity of the oppression and racism and discrimination and enslavement of you have to be strong, right? You have to be strong. You cannot be seen as weak. And so the term, mental illness or, that was just not something that was acceptable in the Black culture, because we had to be seen as strong, especially African-American females. And so when we look at statistic wise, African-Americans, you have the same rate of depression, anxiety as other individuals in the population. But when it comes down to it, only 1 in 3 actually seek out mental health treatment. And again, it's that stigma. It's also too, Black culture is based on, faith, family, and community. Anything outside of that, wasn't needed, right? So you would go to your pastor, for help. Your parent would be like, oh, you're stressed out, go to the pastor, he'll help you in everything, right? Or family, whatever happens in the household stays in the household. You don't go tell the teacher, you don't go tell the doctor, we handle it within our family and our core. So that's, kind of keeping it to the vest, keeping it close to the vest, we just don't talk about that stuff. And when it is talked about, there's that crazy uncle, right? So you'll be at the barbecue and you'll be like, oh, there's uncle, he's a little off, something's wrong with him, but there's no talk that, maybe he has schizophrenia, maybe he has PTSD. There's no discussion. It's just that crazy uncle and stay away from him.
Yeah, it sounds like a really challenging situation to just especially someone with being in that situation with a more chronic issue, and to be told, grin and bear it, or just kind of look the other way and, put a Band-Aid on it, So how did that evolve to today? Like, what's kind of, what direction are we moving, and what can we help to make that better?
Yeah, and I just want to add also to that, there's this level of mistrust, again, with everything that has gone on over the span of 400 years, there's been that, we know that there's been experiments. We know that African Americans have been misdiagnosed a lot with schizophrenia. So there's that mistrust of like, how do I trust this person, with my deepest, darkest secrets, which is the challenge. And I just wanted to share, my experience, with mental health. My brother, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, in the family, it was not talked about. It was something is wrong with him. He's stressed out. He's tired. There was all these other labels put on it, but there was no schizophrenia. There was no, let's go to a psychiatrist to see what's going on. Nothing like that. It wasn't until my brother had a suicide attempt where he nearly died that everybody woke up and said, oh my gosh, we have to do something about this. So I, as well as you don't want to see people get to that point. We don't want them to be struggling in silence, right? So this platform here is to let people know it's okay. If you are struggling with something, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, whatever it may be, it's okay to reach out for help. There are people that want to help you develop those skills. And I think just knowing and seeing more people, African American, minorities, in the field. I think that's the first step, is like getting more people interested in, the mental health field, to be able to see like, oh, okay, I see somebody that looks like me, that's the first step.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that personal experience. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That sounds like, I can only try to imagine, the stress on the family, something like that. Right. So, well, you brought up one thing, getting more people of color into the field, and it will help increase just that feeling of having other people that look like you or have background like you, which absolutely, because this is, you talked about things like trust and empathy, and that's the more integrated we are, the easier that becomes.
Right.
So what else though? So let's start with providers, people in the field. What can we do to help enhance these things that we're trying to accomplish, to make it so people are comfortable and they do reach out? Like, I'm thinking to myself about somebody with a broken arm, just letting their arm, not going to the hospital. Mental health is just like that. You need that help. You got to get it, and it's so essential. So how do we get it so people from the African American community and any other community that lacks that trust, how do we bridge that gap?
I think it's just, first it starts with education. Right. And it starts when they're little, right? Educating them to know, like, this is what anxiety is. This is what depression is. This is not just like I'm stressed out and I'm tired. This is what I can look for within myself to know, okay, there's something more here. So being able to identify, certain risk factors. Also, I believe getting more counselors in the school, getting, the school-based youth service program. I don't know if they're still in existence, but it was a wonderful program that provided like free counseling within the school. So if a child was like stressed out, or they could go and get therapy, so just making it readily available, keeping that the topic, of like, okay, this is what this looks like, and this is where you can go to get help. Because a lot of people don't know, where can I get help? And then when coming to, a therapist like me or you, us having that sensitivity and being comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations, right? A lot of things have been going on, within the news, and just being able to talk about like, hey, how is that affecting you? How are you doing? How are you feeling with everything that's going on? Because we have to realize, for the African American community, there's layer upon layers of trauma, whether it's indirect or direct trauma, So I think it's just having that like cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, and just even just being transparent of like, you know what, I don't know what your experience was like, but help me to understand.
I was funny, as you were speaking, I was thinking exactly that, the cultural humility to be able to say, instead of saying, oh, I don't see color, or, I understand, you could never really understand someone's situation, especially on a personal level, without that humble attitude to say, teach me what it's like to be in your situation so I can better help you, and regardless of someone's background. So that's,
I just want to add, like,
please.
I've, had situations where an individual would say to me, like, I am so sorry for what my ancestors have done, and when that happens, when a person apologizes, I always wonder what's going on there, and, it puts, me or someone else on the defensive to say, it's okay. Right. So we just have to kind of like watch the things that we're saying, again, just being transparent of, again, I want to understand your struggle. I want to understand what it is like for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great example. So let's kind of summarize. You brought up some great stuff here. Some of the things so anybody who's listening to this can kind of put it. I love, stuff that's practical. And you definitely hit some practical points. So let's wrap it up. So moving forward, some things that we can all focus on. And even if you have to repeat them again, because, and actually, repetition is always a good thing for kind of hammering on So what are we going to do?
Yeah. So, okay. You have a client that comes into your office, and they just know that there's, I'm feeling this way and I don't understand education. So educating them of, hey, what this is sounding like is something called anxiety, right? So, because it may just be that epiphany, like, oh my gosh, I never knew there was a word that goes along with what I'm feeling, right? So that education that, if this is a partnership, this is a collaboration, I'm your ally, I want to understand, I want you to be able to be open, I understand there's layers of mistrust within, the system. And again, it's going to be uncomfortable to have these like conversations, but that's good to be uncomfortable because then you're working through those things.
Right. Right.
And if you don't know, you can always, that's why we have these platforms. There's podcasts, there's many books that have come out, or, just sitting down with a friend of a different ethnic group, race, to just kind of say, hey, what is your experience like? Just to get more knowledge, on what's going on.
Gotcha. So we got some really good tips here from you, Rashidah. And I feel like if we had more time, there's a lot, you could definitely, oh man, no, because you have so much passion and knowledge and personal experience as well. It's amazing. So getting the field more integrated, more people of different backgrounds. Absolutely. We definitely need that. So it's for anybody out there who's aspiring, who might be listening to a career, especially someone from different backgrounds that aren't less represented. It's great to have you come on board.
Get counselors in those schools. Get the counselors
in the schools. We want to educate and we want to have these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable. Let's have them and let's be humble as we have them and learn and let people share their experience so we can bridge the gap, right? So.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say, is that sometimes, so until we see someone doing what we want to do, it's hard to aspire to that, so I, for most of my life, didn't have any, Black African-American supervisors. I didn't have any African-American teachers. So I didn't aspire for that because I didn't see that, right? So I think just more people in those roles, to make people feel, more comfortable is really, really, truly important. So if we can get some scholarships out there, to, get more males also into the mental health field, I think that'd be amazing.
Excellent. Right. So, well, I really appreciate your time. I think this is a big help. And I think, again, I think I could see you doing a full day of course on this. I mean, you really know your stuff and, and your passion for it shows. The fact that you live this in the sense that you're not just talking about it, I can see just from our conversations, which is great. And let's hope to, to get the word out there that we expand that education. Let's be empathetic with one another and help one another. So no one should feel that they can't get the help that they need for their mental health. And that's what it comes down to. Things like Black History Month, it's great that they bring attention, but we need this stuff all year round, every year, because this is, it doesn't go away once March 1st comes. This is such an important topic. So I really want to thank you. And I always feel, every time we talk, I feel inspired and which is great. So hopefully our listeners are feeling the same way as well. Thank you very much, Rashidah. And thanks
you, everybody,
for listening to the latest CPC podcast.
Bye.
Take care.